the Light of Truth radio broadcast with Michael Boldea.
All right, welcome to the program and thank you for joining us. This is the Light of Truth radio broadcast. I am, as ever, your humble host, Michael Boldea, and today is a relatively fresh program. We are recording this July the 16th, the year of our Lord, 2025. Last week, we tried our best. It didn't work. Internet was spotty, and so it's not as though we strive to put out great product, but it needs to be, at least legible or understandable. And the internet was far too spotty for me to put together a good program. I apologize for skipping, but it's been 2 years since I actually skipped a program or played a recording. And so in these 2 weeks, much has happened. Not all for the good. Some require your prayers. Such as what happened in Texas with the flooding. I have 2 daughters of my own. We were contemplating sending the older one to camp, and it wasn't in Texas. It was here in Romania. But the whole idea of a parent, sending their child to camp, never considering that they would never see them again, never watch them play, never see them smile, is so heartbreaking and heart-wrenching to me. Just keep those parents in your prayers because they need it. It takes time, and it takes going through a lot of pain to get over something like that. So that was the first thing that I wanted to put out there, because it's been on my mind and it's been on my heart. And every time I come before the Lord, I remember all those families in my prayer. I don't think I know any of them personally. I doubt that I do. I'll likely never meet them, but they're parents and they lost children. And sometimes it's the most basic reason that is the most important. No, I don't know if they're all Christians. No, I don't know if they're Baptists or Pentecostals or whatever they might be. But I know that they were parents, and I know they lost children, and I know that they need prayer. And so that's my jump off point. And I know there's a lot of people that, for whatever reason, prefer to be more callous than that. Where if they're not in my little camp, if they're not in my little niche, if they don't belong to my denomination, then well, they got what they deserve. No, nobody deserves this. Horrible things happen every day. And we have to allow that God knows best, that sovereignty is His, but we can still pray for those hurting. We can still pray for those that are going through pain, that are going through trials. Thank you to all of those that keep my dad in your prayers. He still needs them. He's looking better than he was when we first got here. Every day he seems to be a little better. But it's still, it's still touch and go. We don't know. God knows. We have faith, and we pray and we persevere. But in the end, God's will be done. And that's the thing that a lot of believers have a difficult time wrapping their mind around. The idea that in the end is God's will that will be done. We can pray for something. We can hope for something. We can have faith. And God still says no. He hears our prayers, but sometimes He says no. So to all of those that have a little extra few minutes on a given day, just remember those families from Texas in your prayers. Or I know that not all the families were from Texas, but wherever they were from, all of those that lost children, it's a horrible thing to lose a child. There is that saying, and I believe that it's true, where no parent should outlive their child. And every time it happens, it's heartbreaking and heart-wrenching. And it wrecks you, man. It wrecks you. And I've seen it with friends who lost children. I've seen it with people I knew who lost young children. And it ravages you in ways that nothing else in this world would. You can lose your home, you can lose your job, you can lose your car, you can lose a limb, and still not be as thoroughly wrecked is the best way I can put it, as losing a child. So much else has happened. I think that the elephant in the room, as it were, is the story that will not die. And I believe that this administration has lost a lot of goodwill because of this. They've, I think it was an unforced error. And I will give you my 2 cents, even though it may not be worth 2 cents. But I've been looking at the situation from a variety of viewpoints. And it's the whole thing about the Epstein list. And this is my take on it. Okay, I may be proven completely wrong, but it makes sense logically for these factors to be in play. First of all, because I've been asked via email and messenger, do you believe they didn't release it because the big orange man is on it? No. I think if the big orange man was on that list, the Democrats would have released it no matter what. I do believe, however, that a lot of big names with big money and big donations to campaigns were on that list or are on that list, and they applied enough pressure to congressmen, to senators, and whoever else to use it as a means to get it buried. And I think they were hoping that the people would forget about it. It's one of those horrendous things. It's demonic, demonstrably so, that is not going to go away. People are not going to forget about it. But I think enough pressure was applied to elected officials. And I think the bargaining chip for the whole thing was the bill that just got passed, barely. The big, beautiful bill, as it were. I think that was the bargaining chip that they used in order to facilitate the burying of the Epstein list. You have to understand that if a prince of England, I think he's a prince or a duke or whatever, that schmuck that did the interview on 60 Minutes that was well connected with Epstein, if he was not powerful enough to deflect all the stuff that came on him, if he was not powerful enough to deflect his name being put out there, understand that there are individuals more powerful than an actual prince or duke or whatever he was of an entire nation that are pulling levers in the background that do not want this list to be released. I think it was a power move. I think that when Pam Bondi came out with those files that really held nothing, but it scared enough of them. It was a shot across the bow. It scared enough of them to put them into action, and they started making calls and they started applying pressure, because the whole thing about politics is the money usually wins the day. So whoever has the biggest war chest, whoever has the biggest bank account, usually gets across the finish line. And I think enough pressure was applied to politicians where this was their bargaining chip. Well, either you bury it and we go forward and we vote for whatever you want us to vote, or we don't, and it'll just be a stalemate. So it scared a lot of people. And I, for one instant, do not believe there is no list. I'm sorry. I don't care who says it. I don't care who comes out on the news. I don't care if it's the big orange man himself. But, well, no list. There is a list. The problem is that enough powerful names and powerful people and influential people are on that list where those individuals are perpetually above the law. And I think this was their last hand to play. They used the bill as a means to keep the names out of the press, and whether it wasn't a noble thing to do by any means. It wasn't a right thing to do by any means. But this tells you that, as what is it? Animal Farm says, some animals are more equal than others. There are certain individuals in this world, unfortunately, sadly, tragically, that while they breathe, will not face justice. Now, justice will come because God is not blind, God is not deaf, and God isn't an absentee landlord that doesn't pay attention to what's happening. Eventually, all men will answer for their choices. Eventually, all men will answer for their sins. Eventually, all men will answer for their depravity. I do believe, however, that there are enough people, or people with enough power, and people with enough influence, and people who know where all the bodies are buried and all the skeletons of every individual in every closet in the power broker center of DC and the world, that their names will never be put out. They'll never be exposed for the demons that they are. They'll never be exposed for the criminals that they are. And I it's not good. I don't like it. I think that it's horrendous. But again, I'm one of those individuals that looks at a situation and goes, do I wish that the list was put out even anonymously? Yes. I don't care whose name is on it. I don't care if it hurts Republicans or Democrats or libertarians or independents, senators, chiefs of state, presidents, kings, monarchs, televangelists, or whatever else. If you did the crime, your name should be exposed. Even though you might never see the inside of a court, even though you might never be charged criminally for the things you did, at least the shame of having your name on that list should be known to one and all. And like I said, I'm not one of those monolithic people that follows whatever the party says. I'm not. My allegiance is to Jesus. My allegiance is to Christ. My allegiance is to righteousness and justice. And this was not justice. Justice was not served. However you feel about it, this is how I feel about it. And I'm allowed to have my own feelings because all of us are. Some people are trying to justify it. Some people are trying to, well, it was the best of two bad choices. I don't know if that's the case. All I know is that there are powerful people who are doing their utmost to keep this list from seeing the sun, from being put out there. And I'm sure that this list wasn't something that was buried in the dirt until the big orange man came back into office. So if they could have used the list to damage him in the last elections, they would have done it no matter the fallout. I think they wanted 4 more years of a straw man in power where they can pull the levers and use an auto pen and do whatever they needed to do in order to further their agenda, that if they had to burn a few of their friends, if they had to expose some powerful people, and the big orange man was caught up in the mix somewhere, they would have done it, especially when they saw the polling, especially when they saw that Kamala Harris wasn't quite as popular a figure as they hoped she would be. So that's where I am right now. Do I still hope the list will see the light of day? I do. And it's not because, well, I want to point and say, ha. No, because it needs to be done. Justice, some sort of justice, a semblance of justice still needs to be evident, because I know a lot of people, including myself. It's not that I had faith in politicians or this administration. I had hope that they would do the right thing. And I think that hope has been dashed given what has been occurring for the last few days. I understand politics is politics. It's a dirty business. People make backroom deals. But there are some things, there are some situations where I think a deal shouldn't be struck, especially with monsters that prey on children. And no, I don't think they did the right. I don't believe they did the right thing. I don't think they did the right thing. And we'll see how it plays out. We'll see where this goes. But if ever somebody leaks that list, I think the names that are on it will shock and surprise uh, both sides of the aisle. I don't think one political party is pure as the driven snow, while the other is fully committed to dastardly deeds. I think there's vile individuals on both sides. I think absolute power corrupts absolutely, and anybody that was devoted to the acquisition of power for decades on end thought that they had a free ride. They thought there would be no accountability ever. And I think this is why they were terrified of the idea that this whole thing was going to blow up in their face. Their names were going to be made public, and they could never show their face in public again. So a lot of pressure was brought to bear on this administration, on every single senator, on every single congressperson, anyone with any sort of sway in the American political system that is dependent or was dependent on their high net worth donors, on the super PACs, and on things like that. I think every single one of them got a phone call. And the whispers in the wind, as it were, are that right now influential hosts, talk show hosts, people that have podcasts, people that have radio programs are getting phone calls and being told, try to bury this, try to spin it somehow. There's no spinning this. I apologize for those of you that feel hurt by my words, because you should stick. No, I'm sorry. I didn't sign up to try to bury names of people who have pedophilic tendencies and went to a private island on a private jet to do unspeakable things to children. I'm sorry, that's not me. I'm not gonna, bygones be bygones and all that. No. If these individuals committed these crimes, and there is evidence, if there is a list, that list needs to be made public so that these individuals no longer have any say in whatever happens in this nation. Whether they get, charged criminally, never going to happen, because people with that level of power can disappear. They have enough money to go to wherever they want and live their days, but let them live their days in obscurity and misery. Don't try to influence the course of an entire nation with your money and your political power, knowing what you are, knowing what you've done, and having escaped by the skin of your teeth from having your name put out in public. It's a sensitive topic for me. Anytime children are involved, it's a sensitive topic for me. We've run an orphanage in Romania. I'm still here, by the way. I'm still in Botoșani. I'm still in Romania. We've run an orphanage here since 1997. Our entire mission statement was to protect children. Most of the children that came into our orphanage were either abused by their parents, by their family, by their uncles. They were beaten. They were also sexually abused. And I know the kind of trauma that these children had to overcome. I know all the work and the hours and the sleepless nights that our staff and everyone involved with the ministry put into trying to restore them and bring them to some semblance of normalcy again. So it's not something that we can just wave off and go, well, the economy's doing great. I don't care. The economy's doing great for a day, and then the next day something happens, because that's just the way of the world. We don't live in a world where there is a continuity of peace. Everyone's threatening everyone else. Everyone thinks they can get the upper hand. Right now, the Europeans, especially the English and the French, for some reason, really want a war with Russia. And so the idea that burying the Epstein list will allow for peace on earth is foolhardy. It's foolishness. It's a lie. Because you can't get something good out of something evil. I know that the Lord works evil for good, but this is not one of those cases. If you extrapolate it to that point, then you don't understand the level of criminality that went on for decades on end. That's as far as I'll go with this, because It's one of those things that irks me. It's one of those things that gets my blood pressure boiling. And no, I don't believe they did the right thing. I think that whoever the individuals that applied pressure were powerful enough to make guys like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi and the rest of them do a complete 180. And that takes a lot of pressure, and that takes a lot of power, and that takes a lot of influence. So you get an idea, you get an inkling of just how powerful this group of individuals really is. I'm not going to tell you the names that I've heard floated about, but these are people that are some of the richest people on earth. They're people that can buy and sell politicians at the drop of a hat and still have a few billion left over to buy a yacht and sail the seas. So whoever applied the pressure, and I don't believe it was just one individual, I believe every big donor that knew themselves to be associated with the Epstein files started making phone calls like you wouldn't believe. And promises were made and leverage was applied. And here we are. Because for anyone who believes that we will have true justice while we're on this earth, they don't understand that this isn't our playground, it's the devil's. So we're here, but we're travelers. We're here for a season. We're supposed to shine the light of Christ wherever we go and wherever we are. We're not to expect that the godless show justice and mercy or empathy or any sort of thing towards the innocent. And if you get a win, you say, thank you, Lord, for the win. But if it's a loss, then you have to acknowledge that it's a loss. I'm not going to try to whitewash it. I'm not going to try to spin a narrative. This is how I see it. A lot of pressure was applied across the board, both in Democrat circles and in Republican circles. And these are people that have more influence and more power than English royalty. Because that one goober had to stand there and go, well, I have a medical condition, I don't sweat. Stop. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can just Google it. I'm sure it'll come up. Yeah, I think he was a prince. Or, I don't know, a duke, whatever. The English and their monarchies. Anyway, what else has been happening? There are still people that understand how badly this came off. One of them is Chip Roy. I like Chip Roy. I've heard him speak a couple of times when he was on the floor of the House. And I think he's right on this. He says the Trump administration needs better transparency regarding the Epstein case. And this was shortly after El Presidente Donald Trump doubled down on calling the files a made-up hoax orchestrated by Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and other Democrats leaders. No, I'm sorry. This thing is as much of a ticking time bomb for the Democrat Party as it is for a lot of people in the Republican Party. Because there be perverts on both sides. And I think that one of the individuals that really doesn't want this list to see the light of day would be Madam Rodham Clinton's husband. I'm just saying. So look, it wasn't fabricated. Now the narrative is that it was all a hoax. I don't believe there is, because then why was this man in prison? If there's no evidence, if there's no list, if there was no criminality involved, why did he supposedly, end his mortal life in a prison cell while the cameras were off? And that's another thing where I'm like scratching my head going, come on. Do you really expect people to believe this? That all of a sudden, well, he really did do it himself. I mean, I just take our word for it. I can't. Again, some things stretch my credulity to the breaking point. This is one of them. But the people involved, are so powerful and so well heeled and so well connected and so influential that they will continue to have this narrative until something new pops off. And I think that at some point, if people don't let this go, as we've been told to do, something really gnarly might happen, whether on U.S. soil or some conflict somewhere where we decide to lend a hand just to take the focus off. Yes, these individuals would be willing to risk thousands upon thousands of lives just to get the potentiality of the list being put out in public off the radar, because they understand what it means. See, if they didn't think it was such a big deal, if they didn't think their name being associated with Epstein would be the death nail in their coffin, then they really wouldn't care. But they understand how people perceive it. They understand that it's a horrendous thing that even the godless, even those that don't attend church, that don't believe in Jesus, but who have some sort of moral center, go, this is disgusting. This is criminal. They need to answer for it. They understand the visceral reaction people have towards anyone who abuses children. They understand how they would be perceived and seen in the public eye. And a lot of them, their influence comes from being able to come on whatever platform, whether CNN or Fox or whatever, and give their 2 cents and try to massage the narrative. So I think Chip Roy has the right of it. I do believe there needs to be transparency. I think that you can't say that the entire thing is sitting on your desk and then the next day come out and go, there was no thing sitting on my desk. You may have misspoken, but I don't think that somebody that's an attorney is given to making such verbal foibles while understanding the gravity of the situation. So, speaking with reporters on the steps outside the U.S. Capitol on Tuesday, which was, yesterday, Mr. Roy appeared to stumble over his answer when asked if he thinks the Department of Justice has been transparent enough when it comes to the Epstein matter. Let me answer it for him. No, they have not. And they should be, because it was one of those electoral promises that were made to the American people, because we peons like to have at least the hope that there is equal justice for rich and poor alike. And this shows us that there isn't. I guess if you have enough money, you can get away with murder, as the saying goes. But he ultimately called for the administration to address the situation. He said, look, I'll Department of Justice I'll let them continue to carry out what they need to do. I do think there needs to be more transparency, he said. I do think that all needs to move forward. And I think that the administration needs to address that. But we'll keep talking to them about what they're going to do. So, even a guy like Chip Roy is rattled. When further asked of the DOJ controversial memo claiming there was no evidence of an Epstein trafficking ring or client list, and that the billionaire criminal had committed suicide in his New York City prison cell was good enough for him, Roy replied, "We'll see. We want to see more information out of that." They've circled the wagons, and I'm not holding out hope that the list will be released. I'm not holding out hope that the rich and powerful will face justice, because this is the world we live in. And it's always been this way. It's not... Look, again, I've made my position very clear, and I've tried to explain it the best way I can. I wasn't holding out hope for anything other than to be left alone for 4 more years. I wasn't holding out hope for anything more than for someone not to knock on my door and ask me why I wasn't, flying my rainbow flag or transgender flag or something else, because why don't I want to be inclusive? So as long as that happened, I considered it a win. This, however, is a loss. It's a loss of credibility. It's a loss of reputation. And I think a lot of people, especially within conservative circles, are feeling let down. They're disappointed. Some are even disillusioned because they thought that the truth would out eventually. Well, the truth will out eventually, but chances are when we go beyond this mortal coil into eternity, because everyone will stand before God, everyone will face judgment, and then there won't be anyone to bribe, there won't be anyone to pressure, there won't be any favors to exchange. It will be just God and the individual will stand before God with the entirety of their life presented before them without any black markers, taking out the important things, without any edits, and they will be judged by a just God who is not swayed by politics, who is not swayed by political party, and who is not swayed by donor numbers. And that's where my hope lies currently. I know that justice will be served, if not here in eternity, but justice will be served. Now, for those that are still, what if the other side would have won? Do you really think it would have gotten this bad in Spain right now? Because I'm still in Europe and I'm seeing, a lot of stories coming out of Europe. A pastor is being jailed for counseling against homosexuality. This just occurred in the Spanish House, and they voted, and the vote itself is very telling, because, like I've said before, I will say again, you cannot legislate morality. And right now, 311 people voted to jail a pastor or jail pastors for counseling against homosexuality in Spain, and 33 only voted against. So that's a over 10 to 1 or close to 10 to 1. 311 to 33 individuals in the Spanish House voted to jail pastors for counseling against homosexuality. What I know that the Spanish House doesn't have separation of church and state, or whatever just the dunces try to point out. But just listen to this story, because if you don't think it could happen in the United States of America, understand that it's happening pretty much everywhere else in civilized nations. It happened in Canada, it happened in Austria, it happened in Germany. Now it's happened, in Ireland. Now it's happening in Spain. The Spanish Evangelical Alliance has come out swinging over a proposed bill that would lead to jail time for pastors and counselors who assist individuals seeking to leave or alleviate their homosexuality and align their gender identity with their biological sex. So individuals who are seeking counseling, they're seeking to leave or alleviate their whatever their predilection is, whether gender dysphoria, whether homosexuality, they go, I know this isn't right for me. I need counseling. And any individual who is a pastor or a counselor that assists these individuals in leaving or alleviating their desires, their predilections, are now subject to prison time. Because you're not supposed to tell a sinner what sin is. You're not supposed to tell a sinner that their sin is leading them to hell and destruction. Introduced by the Socialist Parliamentary Group and supported by multiple parties by a vote of 311 to 33, Spain's lower house passed the initial stage of a legislative amendment that would penalize conversion therapies aimed at eliminating or denying sexual orientation, sexual identity, or gender expression by imposing prison terms of 6 months to 2 years for those found providing such services. What's the easiest way of letting people continue in sin? It's making it illegal and unlawful to tell them what sin is. Simple as that. In Spain, conversion therapy is defined as the promotion or practice of aversion, conversion, or counter conditioning methods, programs, or therapies, whether psychological, physical, or drug-based, that aim to modify the sexual orientation, sexual identity, or gender expression of people regardless of the consent they or their legal representatives may have given. It doesn't matter what the person wants. It doesn't matter that they want to be free. It doesn't matter that they want to stop. It doesn't matter that well, their name's Bob and they have all the, accoutrement of a man. He needs to believe himself a woman continually, and don't you dare tell him he's not. Otherwise, you go to prison. Right now, it constitutes an administrative offense, which has financial repercussions, not a criminal offense, which would have penal repercussions. Penal meaning prison time. The GPS says that they proposed heightening punitive measures to the level of criminal offense because they are not facing isolated cases, but rather one of the most serious forms of attacks and denigration of the LGBTI community, especially due to the emergence of new forms of dissemination of so-called therapies, such as web platforms and social networks. Look, for a community that has the largest suicide rate per capita of any other community, perhaps the GPS might consider that these people really do need help. Perhaps the GPS might consider that they should let pastors and counselors tell Bob his name's Bob because he's a boy, even though he put on a wig one time. Look, there's that duality. You can't legislate morality, but you can criminalize it. And the ones that criminalize morality are those that hate God and hate the standard that God set forth. In the beginning, God created man and God created woman. Man and woman came together and made children's. And all of these nations that are actively attempting to criminalize anyone that would speak out against sin and against depravity are suffering some of the lowest birth rates per capita in the entire world. What this means is that there are less people having less children, and the population of that nation continues to shrink. And eventually it will shrink to nothingness. This is why they're so excited about importing all manner of individuals, not realizing that those individuals aren't coming to their shores to assimilate. They're not coming to their shores to become Spaniards and Germans and Greeks or what have you. They're coming with their own culture. They're coming with their own beliefs. They're coming with their own mindsets. And when they get here and enough of them form a group, they impose those beliefs and they impose those mindsets on the native population. I know this is one of those conversations we've had from time to time, but it is an existential discussion regarding the continuity of nations. And I do believe that the broader agenda is globalism. It's that one world, no borders, no nations, no nothing, just a stew of people. And if you can't get the native population to agree to globalism, well, then you water down the local population until those that came in outnumber the locals and they're like, hey, whatever. As long as we get our money, as long as we get our benefits, as long as we get our free housing, we don't care what you call yourselves. We don't care. We can be the one world of whatever, the global force of whatever you want to call it, as long as we still get the things we came here to get. They didn't come to Spain to become Spaniards and learn how to fish and learn to eat paella. They came because, well, you know, Spain has a really robust aid system, and they get money for their kids, and they get money for housing, and they get money for food. And then the parents work for cash, cleaning homes, going to construction. And for the migrants that don't contribute in taxes, it's a good deal. And that's the unspoken rule. The local population, the natives, aren't doing what the globalist agenda wants, and so they're just going to be replaced. If you want to look at one state in particular, and allow me to sip from my delicious beverage, even though it is almost 9 o'clock here in Romania. Still made myself a coffee, and it's still black, but no longer hot. It is what it is. You look at a state like California, or you look at certain communities in Minnesota, even, where the migrant population, or call it immigrant, whatever you want to call it, has so outnumbered the native population that they're voting in their own people, they're voting in their own legislation. And the will of the native population, the people that were born here and had children here and pay taxes here, is non-existent. It doesn't matter anymore because they're in the minority. And what happened in places like Minneapolis and places like California is happening in Austria, it's happening in Germany, in France, in Italy, in Spain, in Ireland, and every other westernized European nation. And those few that are standing against this flood are being demonized and criminalized, one of them being the Prime Minister of Hungary. What you're not being told is that the Hungarian people love Orban. That's the Prime Minister. Everyone else outside of Hungary and the Hungarian people despise him because he was very direct in the things that he wants for his own people. He's offering tax benefits. He's offering actual cash to native Hungarians to have more children because he sees where they're headed. He sees the end result of your own people no longer having families, of your own people no longer having children, of your own people no longer procreating, and just bringing in gluts and gluts of other individuals that don't share your values. So anybody that's against this human stew that still insists on borders and tradition and on understanding your history and the people you came from is ostracized and demonized, and they do everything they can to make these individuals out to be the biggest monsters in the world. But if you go in their countries and you ask average citizens, what do you think of Orban? What do you think of your prime minister? Every single one of them has glowing things to say about him. He's protecting our national sovereignty. He's protecting our people. He's protecting our way of life. And all these other nations for which it's too late to do anything about it. Because if you've been to France, or if you've been to Italy, if you've been to Spain, if you've been to any other country in Western Europe, you'll understand exactly what I mean. It's very hard for you to find a native Austrian in Vienna. I mean, you see plenty of Nigerians, and you see Pakistanis and Indians and everything else. But as far as finding a native-born Austrian, you'll have a hard time. And if you do, they're well into their 60s and 70s. So this is what is happening globally because the agenda is still in play. Globalism is still the end goal. Because without globalism, you cannot have the rise of the Antichrist, one to rule them all. While there are still sovereign nations that make their own rules, that make their own laws, that look out for their own people. It's hard to amalgamate everyone to do the thing you say all the time. And if they don't, well, the consequence, I guess, is prison or death. So we're not there yet, but we're headed towards that. Ever so slowly, precipitously, we're headed towards that moment where things are going to start getting from bad to worse. Because nobody that's living well, that can make ends meet, that still has a roof over their head and a stable job and can pay the mortgage and feed their kids, is excited about the prospect of giving up their national sovereignty. So at some point, there will be a turning globally where it will get so fractured and so bad, and there will be so many disasters and so many wars and so many pestilences, and one thing after the other, that one individual will rise and say, the only way for us out of this is to unite as one, to become a global community where we all follow the same rules, where we all accept the same things. And we all know that whenever that conversation begins, the ones they will target first are the Christians who are unwilling to bend the knee to the agenda. So there's a lot of moving parts that I'm seeing, and I'm removed from the United States. I've been on the road for about 6 weeks now. So I haven't been part of the U.S. culture, as it were. I haven't been imbibing on U.S. news, but I've been reading news articles and I've been talking to individuals wherever I land. And they're all seeing the same thing, and they feel powerless to stop it because they feel as though their vote doesn't matter, their voice doesn't matter. And the people in charge, if the people vote against them, will find ways to circumvent the will of the people and still do what they want to do. So we're headed towards that. The Bible tells us that this is the end result of what the world will look like. And again, we come to the idea of how established and grounded your faith needs to be. That when you see all of these things happening and taking place, you are not moved, you are not shaken, but you continue to be committed to the truth of the gospel, to the way of Christ, even if it means that, 333 or 311 to 33 voted that if you voice an opinion regarding aberrant practices, you should go to prison for 6 months to 2 years. And eventually that 6 months to 2 years is going to be 5 to 10 years because, we weren't able to shut them up at 6 months. We just need to up the prison time. And eventually with full prisons, we need to have a more permanent solution, don't we? We need to show these people who are against progress that we mean business. And anyone that's willing to put you in prison for 2 years, for 5 years, for 10 years, will likely be talked into finding that permanent solution, where you're such a thorn in the side of progress that you need to be permanently excised. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look at the history of the church. Every time those in power considered Christianity to be a danger and a threat to their power, they had no qualms about rounding people up and putting them in mass graves. Oh, Brother Mike, you're being hyperbolic. No, I'm just telling you what has happened. There's nothing new under the sun. What was will be. It just needs the right environment. It just needs the right set of circumstances. That's the one thing that we fail to understand, is that given the right set of circumstances, given the right situation, given the right pressure, history will repeat itself. The church will fall under global persecution again. And we need to be wary and be prepared for such an eventuality. But rather than prepare ourselves spiritually, rather than prepare ourselves mentally for the prospect of persecution, you've got churches putting out non-compete clauses forbidding former employees from working in the state. You've got people trying to protect their slice of the pie to such an extent that even with all that's going on in the world, they seem to be blind to it. I saw this article, and it made me sad and it made me chuckle, because it's just the way things are and the way things are going. And it's not someone that's unknown to, the evangelical community by any means. Rod Parsley, of all people, of World Harvest Church, apparently it has been leaked that anyone who comes into his employment must sign a non-compete clause, and if they ever leave, they cannot work in the state anymore. You have to promise that you won't join or align yourself with a church or any organization that is speaking against or is in opposition to Pastor Parsley. I thought you weren't supposed to align yourself with anyone that's against Jesus. Is Pastor Parsley on equal footing with Jesus? That's the question, isn't it? Promise that you won't become a pastor or staff member of any church within 100 miles of Columbus, which includes nearly the entire state, including cities like Cincinnati, Springfield, and Dayton, as well as part of West Virginia, Indiana, and Kentucky. So any of you looking to gainfully be employed by World Harvest Church, make sure that you read the NDA, okay, or the non-compete clause. This is just sad. This is just sad. Anyway, it would seem as though we're quickly running out of time. I know I've been running off at the mouth, but I haven't talked to you in 2 weeks, so I had a lot of things to say. More to be said. We'll save it for next week. But the last thing, and again, there are mixed feelings about this, mixed opinions. Evangelical pastor and author John MacArthur is dead. He died at the age of 86. And again, I differ theologically with some of the things he said, but you cannot discount the fact that the man showed bravery when others didn't. So, as with all men, as with all flesh, he too will one day stand before God. I am not his judge, I am not his jury, and Lord knows I'm not his executioner. So you can look at the life of the man and point out the good things that he did. You can disagree theologically, but I think that it's taking it one step too far, where individuals are decreeing that he is now in hell. Not your place and not my place. God knows, God decides. And with that, thank you all for listening. I know I've upset quite a bit of you today, but hey, hang on. Next week will be a different hour, and I will likely upset more of you. For now, Gino, my friend, if you are there, we're at 55 minutes, and I think that we're close to when we're supposed to end. So if you are there, por favor, as they say in California, give us your wisdom.
Thank you, Mike. First of all, I agree with Mike. You don't wish anyone to end up in hell. We should never have that heart. And I agree with Mike. God's the judge. Even for John MacArthur, God's the judge. But going back to the book of Timothy, Paul faced death, jail, prison, stood for the Lord at all costs. And even if they make laws against the church or us that are against the faith, there's no way you should support not speaking against sin. We're commanded by God to speak the truth. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil. And this is Paul's comment, words in Timothy. 2 Timothy 4:1, I charge thee before God and the Lord Jesus Christ, who shall judge the quick and the dead at his appearing in kingdom. Preach the word, be instant in season and out of season. Reprove, rebuke, exhort with all long suffering and doctrine. That's what a man of God did. Cost him prison at times, jail and death. He goes on to say, the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lusts shall heap to themselves teachers having itching ears. We've got plenty of them in America today. They shall be turn away their ears from the truth and be turned unto fables. All right, here's Paul's admonition to Timothy. Watch thou in all things, endure affliction, do the work of an evangelist. Make full proof of thy ministry, for I am now ready to be offered, and the time of my departure is at hand. What a man of God who never, ever bent to mediocrity or compromise. I have fought a good fight. I've finished my course. I've kept the faith. That's a key statement. You stand for the faith, the word of God, the truth of God, the way of God. You can't say you stand for the faith if you cower at the threat of a jail cell or to be beaten, because you should stand for the truth at all costs. Paul never wavered. He never flinched in the face of a beating, which he took many of, and of a jail cell. But he says, I fought a good fight. I finished my course. I've kept the faith. Henceforth, there's laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me on that day. And not to me only, but all them that also love his appearing. That is the attitude we should have as Christians, as pastors, as evangelists, not worried about the consequence of speaking the truth. You should worry about the consequence of not defending the faith and the truth. Thank you for listening to the Light of Truth radio broadcast. God bless you.
Thank you for listening to today's broadcast, The Light of Truth, with Michael Boldea. If you would like to order a copy of today's broadcast, please visit our website at handofhelp.com. If you have questions about our ministry, you can email us at handofhelpoffice@aol.com or simply call us at 920-206-9910. God bless you.
They are all leaving and turning upside down.